Hi everyone, it's Peter from PS Sound, and this is now part 8 of this Suzuki project. We've been a bit quiet in the last 2 months because we've been packed with work, and this is the end of the year, and we managed to find 2 days to crack on with this car. So we will have some extreme stuff done on it that I can introduce to you, but at the same time I would like to use this part to explain how the system is actually already functional and how we've been running it in the last 2 months, because the car has been used. In the last part you could see the dashboard, how we fitted the mid-range, but we didn't have any results of that shown to you. And I would like to use this part now to explain how the current layout is working, what are the pros and the cons. So as you can see, yes, this car is now dirty because it's winter time, and I've been using it, both me and my missus, and it's been working. It's not in a state that I'm happy to show to customers and clients when it comes to the actual sound that we managed to achieve in the car, because it's not finished, and I'm going to explain what that actually means. So in previous parts you could see the trunk. We haven't had time for a trim panel yet, that's going to come, where we have the JL W3, the 13-inch sub running off the Zapco H1 amplifier, and the last 2 channels bridged. And yeah, control cable is just still hanging there. It's not pretty, but it's been functional. When we had to load the car, I just covered it, protected the sub, and I could still carry the Christmas tree in it. So yeah, it is what it is. When we have more time, then we will have a trim panel as well, but that's not priority. So for the time being, yeah, the tweeters were just banged into the pillars, and I got comments on that, you know, we expected better job from you, Pete. But when we did the mids in the dash, even those are not finished. We don't have trim rings around them to make the cut line on the dash pretty. I have to hide that, make it blend in, make it, you know, finished. And of course the tweeter needs proper aiming, proper location, because that was just what we could do when we did the dash. Dash went back on a day. In the afternoon I had a quick tune, and by the time I finished the tuning it was like 7 o'clock with that tweeter aiming. And this is exactly what I hate. There are many debates about it. Last few days I had a conversation with one of the guys in the US, and he said that he managed to achieve good results with off-axis tweeter aiming like that. It's not my cup of tea, and I'm going to explain why. But yeah, don't think that that's permanent. It is not. That tweeter from driving position, that's at like, yeah, 80 degrees off, and you will see from the measurements how bad that is. But at least we had a tweeter and he was doing something. To be fair, those 4-inch speakers, you will see from the measurements that they work very well, even wideband. And I have those currently in the Honda, whether I haven't showed yet, but many people heard those in the Honda too. And when I play those drivers full range in the dash, it actually shocks people what it does for the price, how versatile it is, because you can run it low, you can run it high. It's a great driver. Maybe on a pillar, if you mounted that 4-inch driver on a pillar, whatever, you know, aiming you have on a pillar, it will look pretty big. But on the dash, it's not that bad. We had the same drivers in the Renault Clio I shared a week ago. You could see that. And in that car, they blended in nicely, although we customized those shiny rings, because you can see the reflection on the windscreen even here in the workshop that the customer didn't want. So we had to take the grille off, take the driver apart, protect the cone, and then respray those flashy shiny rings. So yes, we have to do the tweeters for sure, but in the following 2 days we are going to do the mid bass, because, you know, 4-inch mid on the dash wouldn't really tie together with the sub at the back. So again, just like the tweeters were fitted in 5 minutes, the mid bass was fitted in 5 minutes. And you could see and hear me talking about these Focal ISUB tiny little boxes that I don't even know how I can take them out. They are a bit less than 3-inch. I'm going to drop a picture in here, then you can see what it is. Less than 3-inch high. You can see the dimensions on Focal's website. It's probably like 2.5-3 liter with an oblong speaker, and you can't even see the terminals here on the side, as you can see. So it's great for certain solutions where you can't put a mid bass in the door or anywhere else, but this is more like a kick sub, and probably that hence the name ISUBTWIN, twin, because it comes in a pair and it's not expensive. But when I always say that I hate doors, that's still a better solution because you don't get any rattles from the door. It has its limitations, it can't play high, so you can't use it with a 2 or 3 inch mid-range. But if you have a 4-inch mid-range installed well, then you should be able to put a system together, and that solution underneath the seat should be enough to have the possibility to integrate the mids to the sub at the back. What it's like, many people ask it, how good are they, these ISUBTWINs? It's not the best solution, 100% not the best. But as I say, if I had to chuck a mid bass in the door, I would still do the iSubs underneath the seat, because you have clean music coming out of them without any vibration. But they only ever really functional between 55-ish up to, like, it depends on the car and the location, up to around 130, 150 maximum. So that's why a 3-inch or a 2-inch mid-range is not capable to integrate to them. But other than that, they are pretty good. I can't really say anything bad about them, because you know, pair here in UK costs something like £300. What would you get from that sort of money? And considering the cost of the installation, which costs nothing, you need a Velcro them down, plug the speaker cable in, job done. And it ticks many boxes. Yes, it doesn't tick all the boxes. If it ticked all the boxes, then we wouldn't do anything else. We would all use those drivers. I always say location matters the most, and yeah, underseat location has its limitations. So even if the driver could play higher, up to like 300-500 hertz clean, still, because of the location, it wouldn't cover the range where it's at, because where you sit, you just wouldn't hear that range. You will see from the RTA measurements coming. I'm going to show them very soon now. But that's the reason why that was also temporary, just like the tweeter install. And that's the reason why we will do exactly the same what we did in the Clio. And you can see I prepared for the following 2 days. I made the rings and they already prepped, lined up. So they will be, the 6.5s will be installed in the kick base. That's the, well, in the kicks, that's the plan. Exactly the same way like in the Clio. If you haven't seen that, please go on the channel and check out the Renault Clio Trophy Pocket Rocket, or whatever we called it. And you can see in that how we fitted 5 1/4 in that car as well, with fantastic results. We shared the RTA measurements of that, and it had full explanation and everything on Patreon. But I will have a bit more coverage of this for you guys, so you can see, because we've shown everything from this from this Suzuki with you. So that's gonna be a lot of work to do these kicks, record everything, edit everything. So that's why I wanted to keep that a separate video. That's gonna come hopefully in a week's time, and then you will see what we do with that. But for now, check out the measurements and the results of the current layout as I showed to you, and then you can see how we managed to pull a system together from what's in the car right now. As per usual, this is the part when most people run away, because they are like, you know, Pete, what is this? We just want to put speakers in, amplify them, happy days. But those who have been following the channel, they know that the tuning is probably the most important part after a good installation. You cannot skip installation, that's for sure. Location, application, proper installation, and then tuning. So that's going to make it clearer what's happening in the Suzuki right now and how we are going to make it better. So as you can see, I have a few measurements. So let's clear it and then go one by one. So this is the left tweeter running with a 1 kHz high pass filter, and you can see it comes alive pretty low, around 1.1, well, rather like 1 kHz. But then this is what happens when a tweeter is off axis. It starts to roll off so soon. If it's within 20 degrees, it would play up to like 16-17 K without any problem. and these tweeters play linear up to like 21k, but it's all gone. It's such a level drop. It's in a 5 dB scale. You know, anything from there down there, it's more than 10 dB. And I don't like systems like that. It's not open enough, not detailed enough. And then, as I mentioned earlier, some guys do the other trick. Instead of pulling the top end up or finding a target level somewhere halfway, so they don't have to boost that much on the top end, they rather find a lower target line and they pull everything down. But with a small digital amplifier like this, you cannot overcompensate like on a standalone amplifier, where you can offset the gain structure and then turn the gains up on the tweeter, and then what you lose with the EQ, then you can bump up with the gain. You just can't do that with a digital amp. You don't have enough playroom on the output level section. So yeah, this is not working for me. And same way on the driver's side, same way, you know, tweeter starts to roll off even sooner. What's that, 7k? Honestly, the 4-inch drivers can play higher. So I just measured it just to be familiar with the situation. But this is probably what most people are interested in, what those 4-inch drivers can do on the dash. And yes, they are very, very capable, all the way from their FS, which is pretty low. They come alive from 100 Hertz. They have response. You don't want to run it probably that low, but in the Suzuki now, it's crossed that 130. And it doesn't struggle with it at all. Yes, you can see there's a lot of level below 1 kHz. The corner loading in the car boosts quite a lot, but the driver is functional, you know, all the way up to 14k. And then the other side measures really similar, and same way, plays very high. But I mentioned earlier that in the Honda I have a preset where they play up to 15k without any problem. Once people hear that, they are actually pretty shocked, because this 4-inch is not meant to be wideband, yet it works pretty well. With the right amplifier and right settings, you could actually run those 4-inch even tweeterless, and for some people it could be okay. But as I always say, a system is always better with a good tweeter. So under seat, again, people are interested in the focal ISUB. So it's kind of functional between, you know, 60 on passenger side up to 170, 80. Although on driver side the situation is slightly different. It starts to roll off earlier, so that's the reason why I had to cross it low in the Suzuki, which was fine because we have the 4-inch on the dash, and I could easily pull a system together with that sub. Yeah, a lot of level. And as always, short cabin peaks high, 50, 53, 4, 5. The Clio we had a few weeks ago, that was peaking at 57, even more. And that's the problem. People are like, you know, this sub is just not playing the lows so well. I'm like, well, no, it's playing the lows, but the level is not enough because you have such a big peak in that short cabin. So you have to get rid of that peak, make it linear to the time you pull that level down. You lose output with the sub, then you have to compensate and then turn the gain up. But again, with a small digital amplifier, there's not much room you can deal with. That's why it's always better to have a standalone monoblock where you can just play with the gain structure and then get everything out of that amplifier and then give enough juice for the subwoofer. But nothing drastic. There's no cancellation like you would see in long cars, and it's clean, you know, up to 110. So by the way, yeah, the sub was measured full range, so you can see it's still playing high, but we don't need that, do we? So once the left mid was crossed and then EQ'd, I got rid of all those peaks, I balanced out that dip. It's, you know, doable. I crossed it really high. I think I crossed it at like 8k just to see what I can do in the current layout. And then that's the other one after, you know, the other one was this with the crossover, and then once they were EQ'd, they matched pretty well within like a dB. Pretty good all the way across that 130 up to 8k, measured beautiful. And then that was after they were timelined and then measured together. I couldn't wish for anything better, honestly, and they work really well. The imaging in the car is fantastic. So then left tweeter, once it's crossed, you know, at 8K, there's not much level. And then, yeah, that's the right with the crossover, even less level on the top end that way. So then I boosted hell of a lot just to get level out of these tweeters, which is really not the way to do. And then the tweeters in pair. And then once the dash was time aligned, it was all right. But certainly there's just not that revealing sound this way with the tweeters crossed that high, as if the tweeters could play lower and they could maintain the top end response as well. But hey ho, it'll be better once we sort everything out. But that's why I'm showing it to you guys, so now you understand that, like every system, it can be a process. It's not just banging speakers in and expecting magic. It's not going to happen. You have to have the drivers in the right locations with the right aiming. So left bass, right bass with X overs, and then left bass after EQing that showed a bit of a peak above 100 Hz, and then right bass with EQ. Once they were EQ'd, they were closer to each other, and then when they were in a pair, actually they measure well, and you can't locate them. You can only tell that the underseat drivers are on when I mute them. Then you can tell that, oopsie, yeah, it is definitely missing now. But otherwise you can't locate them. You can't feel it underneath your bum, and you can't tell where it's locked up to the top of the dash. But again, as I mentioned, you just cannot overcompensate in the amplifier with the gain structure. Like on Helix, you can do plus 5 dB. In the Zapco, you cannot. You can only pull down the levels of the mids and tweeters and bump up the master. That's one way to do it. So that's what I had to do, as you can see with the orange level dropped once everything was running. Let's take all those out then. We don't need those anymore. So yep, that's definitely lower level, but it measures very linear. We have just enough rise, the 3 dB rise, and then once the sub was crossed, then EQ'd, I got rid of that peak, pushed the low end a little bit, and then it's pretty good down to 24.5. Still playing pretty low considering how short the cabin is. And once it's all playing together with a bit more sub level turned up, then the rise is actually very nice and linear. There's enough output at the low end, and the whole system is measuring well. It is doing well, it's imaging well, but as I say, the tweeters are let down. It's just too laid back to me. It's not transparent enough this way. That will be sorted out, and the mid bass with these underseats is just okay. It's fine. People would potentially require a bit more output, and you could get more output if you have standalone amplifiers, as I say, and then you can send a bit more power, set up the gain structure a bit more flexibly, and like I mentioned earlier, when we use those in the Ford Orion, once that car came to me for a tuning session, we had those ISUBs. They worked fantastic. They were great. But when we use those with digital amp like the Helix V8, again from a small digital amp, in the French van, in the big Peugeot, what was it? I don't know, something quite huge in a large airspace with limited power from an amplifier, it was just not really, you know, doing well. And then some people heard it and then they are like, you know, yeah, I'm not too sure, it's not a great solution. It can be a good solution, just as I say, it's not really gonna come alive with small digital amplifiers, because people see the power figures, oh, it's 80 watt per channel, yay, but I never really find them so controlled and dynamic and powerful, because at the end of the day, people mustn't forget that these are shoebox sized tiny little amplifiers. Yes, amplifier manufacturing has improved a lot. Class Ds can sound pretty good these days, and they have a lot of power coming out of such a small format, but it's a single power supply running 8 channels. Some have 12 channels. For components, it's fine. But when people want, you know, crazy kick in the chest, then there's a limitation. To be fair, the Suzuki is pretty loud, and for most people it may be just absolutely fine. If anything, in the Suzuki, the transfer function of the bass is fantastic. You have a really great feel of bass. I mean, in some cars you hear the notes, but you don't really feel it. You don't have that chest kick in, tight kick. Whereas in the Suzuki, it's there. Both the underseat and the sub at the back work together pretty well. They sum up, and they have a great feel of bass. So overall, it's definitely moving to the right direction. It's going to be a fantastic system. But yeah, we have to finish those certain things I mentioned. So we have to do the mid bass install, which is going to happen in the following days, and then as soon as I have time after New Year's Eve and whatnot, then I'm going to share the results with you. You will see the pictures and everything, all the content, time lapse, whatnot. Then we move forward. We get closer to a so-called finished state. It's never really finished, is it? But then we will be in a happier position for sure. So this is it for this short one, guys. Hopefully you liked it and you now have a bit more knowledge about what's really happening behind the scene to get a good sounding system. Check out the description. You can see a link to Patreon. I have to mention it because many people don't know about it. We have a lot of content over there, behind the scene content, weekly topics, RTA measurement results, whatnot, that, you know, now many people learn a lot from. So it's definitely worth to check it out. If you can't, you know, sign up for a long time, just sign up for 1 month and you can go back, you can check a year's worth of content, you can check out a lot of stuff you can learn from. Then I also put a link to description to the tuning part, then you can see more videos like this where I show RTA measurements and how I pulled system together. Well, how I pulled many speakers into a system. Let's put it this way, that's what normally happens. Because until a system is not tuned, then you only ever really listen to separate speakers, you don't listen to the music. A good system is when you lose the hardware, you don't listen to the speakers anymore, you just listen to the music. Your eyes are not drawn to the speaker locations, you just have, you know, fantastic staging in front of you, and you can get lost. You feel like you are right there in front of the band. That's the aim, really, isn't it? So hopefully you liked it. As always, feel free to share it, comment and subscribe. And then some people told me I have to tell it, you know, just click on the notification so you don't miss the video when I upload it. It's pretty important. And also, please like the video, because the more people likes the video, the more people like it, then YouTube pushes the content out further and then more people can find it. So for this one, this is it. And then hopefully in a week's time I can bring the following episode for the Suzuki project. But yeah, all I can say in this video, guys, that's I'm really glad that you've been supporting us so well. You've been following this build as well, and I wish you, you know, a fantastic 2022. Definitely a better one than the last 2 years, which have been a bit difficult for many of us. But I all wish you a happy new year. See you in the next one. Take care.